Hi, my name is Sean from Brown Sound. We did the upgrade of the system last week. So essentially I'm here to kind of go through all the changes and walk you through the ideas that drove this upgrade. Basically the first part is whatever you knew about the pre-existing system, the one that was here before, forget it. It's all gone. There are pieces and parts which remain. So when you look around, you say, well, nothing's changed. And mostly that appears true. Most of the changes we made were internal, not visible from here, although there are new stage plates. All the plates got replaced all throughout the auditorium. But we added new stuff everywhere too. But all the wiring is the same, all the speakers are the same. So that didn't change. What we did change was how the speakers and all the plates and everything else were integrated. There's a stage box over here that used to have volume controls. The box is still there, the volume controls are gone. There used to be a box up there in the booth which had volume controls and a bunch of cables to plug in a console. The box is still there, all the wiring is gone, other than what we did internally. And then there's a room in here where used to be a big amplifier which controlled the entire system. That, of course, is gone. All the wiring junction boxes and pieces and parts were all gone, replaced by digital processors and a couple of amplifiers. So the essence of the system is now it operates in two modes using the same speakers you had before and the speakers on the sides of the stage and in the bathrooms and all that. So none of that part changed. What had to change again is how it all works. So the temptation may be to say, well, when the volume controls were in place, we used to do, that's all gone. You don't have volume controls anymore in the same way. It's changed. The system runs in two modes. First is called daily use, the second is called console. Console mode is the one in back with the big mixing board. You can take lots of inputs and outputs and route them and all that. That's the second half of training. The first half is daily use. That's the stuff where the principal wants to walk in on a certain day, maybe I forgot what they're called now, class day, where they don't actually have classes. Faculty can do other things. He can just walk in, plug in a microphone and address the entire staff just like that. There's no one mixing, there's no running anything, you just plug it in and go. Okay, you have 4 microphones available to you in that mode. 1, 3, which is behind the set piece, 5 by that piano, and we have a new microphone 6, which is back here near the stage box. You'll see that in a little while. Those 4 mic plates plus an aux jack, which is here, another aux jack, which is back in the stage right wall, basically, behind the column. It's very tough to see, but it works. That's good. All the plates were replaced because the wiring, which was intact when we got to it, was wired for 1980s standard, which doesn't work anymore. Well, it sort of works, but not the way it's supposed to. It's like electrical. When you have a house that's built years ago, the wiring was done in such a way the ground wasn't hooked up. And in this case, the wiring was done, they only did 2 to 3 wires. So all the plates had to be replaced because for the system to work correctly, all the plates had to be removed. Plus, some were pretty banged up. Daily use mode, you have the 4 microphones. Like I said, I added a new one. And the auxiliaries, which are also rewired. And we'll get into those nuances in a minute. In the console mode, all the mic plates here, all 5 on the stage front work, plus 6 and 7, 8, which is over here by the aux plate, 9, which is over here between the prop room and the other door, and then 10 and 11 are on the back wall, 10 and 11. There is no mic 12. There's a wire, but the wire was damaged in our installation, so it doesn't exist anymore. Doesn't matter, we didn't have a use for it anyways. And then we have mics 13 through 16. We're going to be hanging mics, which I'm installing this afternoon. That box is by the stage box, above it. It can be used for other microphones or other uses if you don't want to use the hanging mics. But it's meant to be kind of out of the way and inconvenient for people to use for anything but the hanging mics. In console mode, you have 15 inputs. You do not have the auxiliary ins. Because when you're using a manual mixing console, you want to be able to have everything controlled from one location. If you have a need to do it differently during your productions, that's fine. Just use a mic jack to do it. But we decided that it would be better to have everything up there, no auxes, none of that. Instead, you have 4 mics in the aux for daily use, and the console gets everything else. So that's good. In daily use mode, the main speakers, which are up here by the clock, are what basically drive the auditorium, just like before. We've made some adjustments. We've retuned them. We've given them different equalization, different levels of output. One major difference in the system right now is, in daily use, these are your main speakers. The stage speakers do not work. But that's a normal use. You actually, well, I'll show you when we go into the amp room, the mixer has an auxiliary output called MON, M-O-N, for monitor. What happens is in daily use, you can turn both of these speakers up at the same time, however you want to, and they basically take the output of these speakers. Basically, whatever's going to here will go to them. It's a way to boost the signals coming in the auditorium, but we found from testing that using these speakers with microphones on the stage front produce feedback, especially if you're back towards the speakers themselves. Because whenever you have a microphone facing a speaker or near a speaker, what happens is the microphone and the speaker feed into each other, and that's feedback. So by eliminating those speakers from most of your daily use functions, we should reduce feedback. You might get some on this, but I'll talk about that in a little while. You shouldn't get that much. In the console, this becomes monitor 1, and this speaker becomes monitor 2. So you can actually send separate mixes to each location. You can send the same mix too if you want, but you can certainly send separate, so you can have something over here for people on this side of the stage, something over there for that side of the stage. And when we get into the console mode, we'll talk about more of those applications. But the idea is this gives you more functionality than you've ever had, because now you have a way to control volumes, not just of all the inputs you're using, but also the outputs and what goes to those outputs. So that's a big change, big upgrade to what's happening. There's not very much maintenance on the system. You have jacks, you have a couple of mixing pieces, and that's about it. So there's not a lot you can mess around with. I'm going to have to skip something. Well, this is a student here during the taping, so I have to skip over a piece of the training, kind of whisper to you individually, maybe put on tape if you want, or if Nick can step out for a minute. But for the most part, this is a pretty bulletproof system that you shouldn't have any issues with, and you shouldn't need to do anything with for as long as you're working. Once you retire, then it all falls apart. But until then, it can work just fine. Okay, so we start off with daily use. Are there any basic questions before I begin? No? Okay. You're going to get up now at this point. What I'm doing here, I just want to kind of walk through quickly where all the new mic plates are. Because of the lighting situation, we can't go through every single one. I kind of have to just point, and I'll do that. But the stage front's pretty basic. These used to be arranged differently. Now we have mic 1 right here. This is, if you're looking at the stage, this is the far left that we're looking at right here is mic 1. Over a little more towards the center, we have microphone 2. It is engraved. It is not taped. It is not written with a marker. This is laser engraved, so it's not going anywhere for a long time. Over a little further. Thankfully, I moved the set piece. Microphone 3 is plugged in right now for testing purposes. We'll get back to this in a little while. There's mic 3. Over here is one of the aux ends. That is a 1/4-inch phone plug jack. And the mixer is looking for a mic level signal. You need to know that. So if you plug something in there, it needs to be a mono mic level signal to work. So if you're plugging in a DVD player, an iPod, a computer, anything like that, it's going to have to be done differently than you've done in the past. We can talk about that in a little while. So there's that. Moving on a little bit. Oh, look. The microphone's off. It's good. Okay. Microphone 4 is right here. Again, this is your right of center. And then behind the piano, not really visible, maybe you can get a shot of it, is microphone 5. You'll see the black plate behind the piano there. That's mic 5. So when you're in daily use mode, you can use mics 1, 3, and 5 on the stage front, and then microphone 6, which is actually back by the old stage box, and then the aux in as well. That's all you have available right now. There are 3 more inputs on the mixer, but they aren't wired in right now. So future use, we get a lot of that in this business. So there's that. The other microphone plates, and I'm going to kind of go right to left here, so you just kind of follow my fingers sort of. Microphone 9 is to the left of that door. So if you see the black curtain, behind that on the wall is microphone 9. If you come over this way, the black curtain where the backdrop is right now, behind the black curtain on a wall is microphone 11, sort of around with a few feet to the right of where the curtain is cut off. So you go over to the left some more, about where the lift is back in there. Microphone 10 is on that back wall there. Okay. Microphone 8 you can sort of see, if you look between these two curtains here, there's a column coming down from the clouds. Microphone 8 is actually to the left of that column. The other aux-in jack is actually sort of behind that column from where we're standing. It's actually back on the wall over there. It's tough to get to, but it does work. So you have aux-in there. Microphone 8 is just to the left of that. And then we'll see the stage box in a minute. But over here, sort of where your light is, behind that is microphone 6 and 7. It's one plate with 2 jacks on it. And then you'll see the hanging mic box as well. And that's all your inputs. Okay. Now this is the old stage box that used to have volume controls and stuff like that in it. It's been locked. You don't need to get in there anymore. It is now just a wiring junction box. So that is no longer in use. So forget about that. That's gone. In its place, what we have is a couple of new additions that put in here. We have this right here, which I hope I'm not blocking the light too much. Right here. This is a controller for the processor. And then we have mic 6 and 7 right here next to it. Okay, remember mic 6 is available in daily use only, or in daily use, excuse me. 6 and 7 are both available in the console mode. 7 is not available in daily use. And then up here to the left, follow my hand sort of, you see a new box mounted on the wall. This is mics 13 through 16. That is for the hanging mics, which will be installed in a few hours. That is, it could be used for other things for the console. It's not available in daily use. But the reason I want to keep that isolated and kind of inconvenient to reach, I want those mics plugged in and not played with, because when you, in the console part, there is special power that has to be sent to this box for the mics to work. So I really don't want people messing with that because it actually kind of throws things off of the board. So my thought was you have 11 mic plates, or 11 mics around the stage area, plus wireless microphones in the booth. Leave the hanging mics alone, let them be where they are. You should have enough inputs. If you don't, that's a different story. But for now, this more than gets you covered for a while. The thing about, we're moving back down to here, down to this little switch, which I'm in the light for. It says daily use for the first button and console for the second button. What does the third button do? Take a wild guess. Third button, fourth button are not labeled. What do they do? Nothing. They do nothing. They do nothing. There's no wire. This is an analog or a mechanical switch. If there's no wire, it doesn't do anything. So you can press these buttons, and you hear the switch going off, but it actually isn't doing anything. The processor is not responding. When you'll see the processor in a couple of minutes, you'll see that right now it's set for console mode, which is preset 2. If I press these buttons, it's still in console mode. It's still in preset 2. This does not affect anything. So this is the case where you tell the students, yes, whatever you do, don't press 3 and 4. But please, for the love of God, don't touch them. They can touch those all they want. You think I'm joking? And I sort of am, but yeah. Because kids will do that in the middle of production. Oh, what does this do? Or hee, click. And oh, look, everything just went dead silent. So that's what happens. If I were in console mode right now, which I was anyways, because 3 and 4 don't do anything. Okay, right now the console controls the whole system. If I go to daily use, what happens is it gets quiet for a second and then switches over to the daily use mixer. So in the middle of production, what would happen is everything goes silent and then it goes over to the daily use mixer. If mics 1, 3, 5, or 6 are in use, you'll hear them. You won't hear 2, 4, 7, 8, so forth, because they're all gone. The wireless is gone. The monitors are gone. Okay? And the reverse is true. Let's say you're just you're addressing the assembly of a few people, and you're in daily use. You go to console, nothing will work because probably the console's turned off for one thing. Faders are down and so forth. So what ends up happening is the system goes dead, and you could panic and say, "Oh my gosh, it's broken. Call Brown Sound." One of the first questions I'm going to ask you is, what is the preset that's activated right now? If it's on 3 or 4, then you don't know which one it is. So just pick one. Okay, we're in console mode now. Good. But daily use, I'm going to leave it in daily use mode, to be honest, because then someone can just walk in, plug in a mic, and go. Start talking, and it gets amplified. Console is for when you have somebody who's actually going to man the mixing board. But that's it. In terms of troubleshooting or maintenance or whatever, there's nothing to do in this system, because all you can do is either turn it on daily use or console. There's nothing else you can do from this position. You can't do anything else with the processor. And the microphones are just microphones there and that box. So that's it for this portion of it. Okay? It's so big and scary looking, and yeah, it's really scary looking. Because, you know, this big lighting panel right next to me, all that circuits, that's not intimidating, which, by the way, I had to get into for this job. It was fun. Okay, so what are we looking at? Well, this is what replaced what you had before, and it's actually pretty simple. Up here is the processor. Okay, it's made in Rochester. Isn't that nice? All these little lights, which only two are on right now, all they're just showing you is inputs and outputs. If the lights are on, that's usually good. If they're red, they're either muted or off. But the point is that there's nothing here to push. You can't adjust things. There's nothing to do. And all you see on this thing, besides this rows of lights, you see preset number, which is 1, a gray button beneath that, which we'll get to, and then this RS-232 data port. I didn't deactivate this, but I seriously doubt anybody has a DB9 serial cable anymore. These things are rarer than, it's unreal. Plus computers don't support them, you have to do adapters. And this processor actually wants to see a Cat5 connection. Do you see a Cat5 connection here? No, you don't. Because it's in the back of the processor, in the back of the rack, where nobody is to go. The wiring on behind this thing is really scary looking. My guy did a great job doing it, but no one should be in the back of this thing. So it's locked. Mr. Berry has the keys. What he does with the keys is his decision. But I don't want people messing with this. If people mess with this, you mess up the system and the warranty goes. So if you have a good reason, don't touch it. Anyways, moving on, beyond the scare factor. I'm going to actually jump to the amplifiers next. We have an amplifier here, an amplifier here. You'll notice again there's nothing on these amplifiers except some lights and a power button. And basically the only thing you have to worry about with these amplifiers is the power on. So for troubleshooting, the two things you're going to do is, number one, does it have power? Number two, if the system is on and supposedly passing a signal, do I see these lights moving? And they should have a little bit of activity. As long as there's something going on in the auditorium, these lights should be going on. Channel 1, channel 2. This is a 4-channel amplifier, but conceptually they're very similar. This amplifier will drive the high-end drivers, the high-frequency stuff in the auditorium. Channel 2 drives the low-frequency, which is the subwoofer. On this amplifier, we have monitor 1 and monitor 2, which are the left and right speakers in the backstage. Channel 3 is for the bathrooms and the booth speaker. There are 2 booth speakers, one is not working. Luckily the one that is working is one that's right near the mixing console. Hey, it works out great. So that's good. And then the 4th channel is not used, so that would be potential future use. These amplifiers are very flexible. They can do 8 ohm or 70 volt, which doesn't mean much to you today. What it means to me is, right now, most of what you have out there is 8 ohm, except for the bathrooms and the booth. Those are 70 volt. Anytime you see a speaker in a ceiling tile, that's 70 volt. It's meant to be distributed sound. It's meant to go long distances, lots and lots of speakers chained together. That's what this is for. But these amplifiers can go either or. So today it's configured for mostly 8 ohms plus a 70 volt. In the future it could be reconfigured. So if they make changes to the speakers, for example, you don't necessarily have to buy new amplifiers to do it. The idea was to give you something that now could last many years. Crown is battle tested, almost literally. These things are unreal. You can drop them from large buildings. I've seen the videos. They don't break. Well, they break, but they keep working. The casing will break, shatter, goes everywhere. But hey, you plug it in and it still passes signal. So these things are solid. They'll outlive me, which isn't saying much. But anyway, so those are amplifiers. All you have to worry about is, they're on, are they passing signal? Power strip right here. All you need to know about this is it turned on? If it's turned off, the rack turns off. The system won't work. So if you're concerned about this, you don't hear anything, you come to the rack and you first check. Is power on? Are the amplifiers on? And then there's a processor, which it should be, because the on-off for this is in the back, which don't touch. And then you have your daily use mixer right here. That's what we're going to talk about now. This also has power right here. Okay, it's labeled 1, 3, 5, and 6, as I've said repeatedly, plus the aux input. 6, 7, and 8 are not labeled because they're not in use. There's nothing there. That could change. If you want to add something later on, you certainly could. You have this main is your main volume. This is for the main speakers in the auditorium. The ones that are over the proscenium, over the stage front. And over here to the right, it says MON. MON does not mean Jamaican MON. It means monitor. like auxiliaries. So those are these stage speakers backstage, which in the console mode would be monitor 1, monitor 2. In this case, these act as a kind of a supplement or an augmentation to your main signal. So you have your mains turned on, and then you might want to turn these up so people backstage can hear it, or because you think you want more sound in the system overall. You can do that from here. I'm going to leave it turned off though, because what happens is if people are on stage using a microphone in daily use, you can get feedback from these speakers. So my recommendation is leave this off unless you think you want to use it. And if you do use it, when you're done, turn it back to 0. Okay? So that's there. Now let's go back to your inputs. Okay, this is a volume knob. Goes from nothing to completely screaming loud. People ask about feedback. How do I prevent feedback? Well, that's usually one of the biggest concerns anyone's going to have an audio system. And the trick to doing audio feedback suppression, how you stop it, is you turn the system on and you set everything up to about halfway. So I would turn the main to maybe about halfway, 12 o'clock, pointing straight up, whatever you're comfortable hearing. Do the same thing with your inputs. Now, when you talk, is the system screaming loud, or could it use a little bit more of a boost? And you're probably going to play with the main first. You want to get that to a level you're comfortable with. In fact, I don't use a microphone to start out. I use an iPod plugged into a mic jack because it's a consistent level, unlike a microphone, which can be pretty variable. So I plug that in, I get a good level out of that, and then, which in this case actually turns out to be here, about 10 o'clock, pointing this way. And then I go back to my microphone and say, okay, now is the microphone too loud? Am I getting feedback? Or is it too soft? Unfortunately, it's not just as simple as turning a knob. It's also how you use the mic. Can the camera see me right now? Okay. If you're using a microphone and you're holding it down here by, below your chest, you're holding it way down, the microphone should be able to pick you up pretty well. But it's going to pick up, it's going to be a little harder. You might lose a little bit. If you swallow the mic, put the mic right in your face like a rapper might, or a rock star who hasn't been trained, yeah, it's going to be really distorted. It's going to sound terrible. You've got to turn the mic way down to compensate for the fact that you're screaming into a mic, and the mic doesn't want to be screamed at. It wants to be farther away. Ideally, the microphone should be here, about 6 to maybe 12 inches away from your mouth. So this is the way you want to hold the mic. Same thing when you're holding it down here. That's fine. If you're holding a mic behind your head facing away from you, if it's facing the floor, if it's facing a different direction, it's not going to work. I know this sounds crazy, but I have to cover all the bases just to be safe. A mic wants to be here, like in this area right here. Not here, not here. Okay? If you do this, it'll overload. Okay. So that's the first part. Make sure you're using the mic correctly. Once you're doing that, then you start playing with this to make sure that this is a comfortable level that doesn't provide feedback. So what tends to happen is, we've set this level. You should be able to go right now into the auditorium, take microphone through, which I've actually plugged in already, and we'll listen to it. Does it sound good? If it doesn't, is it because this is too low or because this is too low? And we'll try both adjustments. But normally, the way the system has been set up already, all you should have to worry about now is turn up the individual microphone or input. Play with that. Once you hear feedback where it starts to distort, turn it back down a little bit. And then you should be good to go. These levels really shouldn't need to be adjusted very much, if at all. We've already set them up. So really, nobody should need to come in here. So you've got a picture of all this, what they look like right now. So that's your default settings, I would say. There is no button you can push to have them all set back to a certain point. You actually have to come in here and turn the knob. It's terrible. That's okay. Okay, so that is basically what you're doing here. Troubleshooting, there isn't any. Except for one thing on the processor, which I'm going to get to. The processor is either on or it's not. It's just that simple. The mixer, you can make adjustments here. You can adjust these pieces, so there's more you can do there. Power is either on or off. Same with the amplifiers. Either they're on or they're off. And if there's a signal appearing, that's good. Usually what happens is you'd see a signal coming out of the outputs up here, right here, and will be appearing right down here. Now, a couple things I want to talk about very briefly. One for troubleshooting, one for future possibilities. The first is up here, this preset number and this gray button. Those controllers, they're mechanical devices, they're not easy to break, and they're made in Rochester anyways. They should last a very long time. You should have no trouble with them. In the event that they do fail, for whatever reason, you can still, I haven't overridden this, you can still press the gray button and it'll change the preset to the next one in line, which is number 2. Now, I'm not going to do it here, because if I do, what will happen is I have to reset it manually, and I have to go through all 31, I think it's 31 presets, by holding it down, waiting for it to change, or holding it down and eventually it'll scroll through them, but then you have to stop before one, otherwise it goes through the whole process again. But in the event that you have to override the mechanical controller, you can do it right here from this processor. It's the only thing you can change in the processor. If the school wants software, we can tell you where to get it. It's free, you can download it, but that's only if you really want it. And that's, again, only if you really need to make changes, which you shouldn't need to, but we'll see. Another thing I want to show you is on this mixer. This may be harder to see on the camera. To the left of every label, there's a little tiny thing that says MA bus. What this does is, there are 2 tiny little dip switches. And I do mean tiny. You need like a jeweler's screwdriver or a paper clip to adjust them. Nick, you can look at them in just a moment, okay? We'll be done in just a few moments. What that does, M or A means M for main, and this used to be called aux. I didn't want to put an aux input and an aux output, that was too confusing. So we have a mon, hey mon thing here. So the MA bus refers to, for every input you've got, is it going to go to the main output? Is it going to the aux or mon output? One or the other, or both, or neither. Depending on where the dip switch is set, it can go to one or the other, or both, or neither. So right now they're all going to everything. But let's say you decide that, mic 6, where it is located right now, I don't really need that to be in the monitors because the monitors are so close by. So you might say, I want to turn off this microphone going into the mon knob. And you would adjust, I don't remember which dip, it's probably the second dip switch has to go down. The manual can tell you this as well. You take the switch down, and then mic 6 will no longer appear on this piece or on the speakers on the back, on the stage walls. I don't know if you're going to want to be able to do this, but it's something that you can do for free. It's fairly easy to do, just having a couple of switches. The mixer I was going to sell you originally didn't have that capability. And then I thought, well, if I'm going to give them the outputs for mon, I need to give them a way to switch back and forth because you want to be able to control what goes there. All you can control is the volume. You can't control what goes there, but with that you can. So I don't recommend you play with it to be silly, but if you need it for something, you really do need it, you can do that right here. You don't have to go in back, you don't have to call me. Those switches are right there in front. So another troubleshooting could be, it's not, I can't turn the main up, but I don't hear it. Why is that? Well, you might want to check, make sure both these switches are up, or at least the left side is up. And then whenever in doubt, just turn them both on. That's probably the safest thing to do. And that is the rack. Okay.
All right.
Thank you. What we're going to do now is that we're going to do just a quick check of how this sounds, how it works, and so forth. I'm going to talk in the microphone a little bit, kind of show you a couple of things. This is daily use mode. Now, I happen to remember we left it in daily use mode at that switch, but if we put it on console, someone would need to go over there right now and hit that switch. We don't need to, we've already been done. And the processor showed number 1, so we're good there. So, daily use mixer is on right now. So this is plugged into microphone 3. Nick, could I plug into microphone 4? For one, which is actually closer to me right now. No, that's right. You can't plug into 4. For daily use, 1, 3, and 5, and mic 6. Maybe you won't need to know this. That's okay. I'm just trying to reinforce where you plug it in. Yeah. Big weight on your shoulders, right? That's okay. Yeah. Meanwhile, while Mr. Berry is terrorizing this poor young man, I'm going to go ahead. I'm just being silly. Okay, so.
I've known him since he was 10.
Really? Nice. So microphone, sound guys love when you tap a microphone. They love that. Of course, being ironic. So now the microphone is turned on, and of course, here is our demonstration of mic technique. Hi, I've never spoken in a public address system before. I don't know. Should I talk louder? Can you all hear me in the back? Can you hear me? Nick, can you hear me from where you are? Of course you can. Okay. Not really. I'm going to turn it up a little bit. Bring it up closer. Yeah, you could crank the microphone level up so it's saying, gimme, gimme, gimme a lot more. Unfortunately, that's going to amplify everything else. Sound of the lighting, sound of the air conditioning or heating going on, it gets ugly. So you just have to keep telling people, bring the mic closer to you. Don't swallow it like this. Hear that distortion? Oh my goodness, Mr. Berry, these mics are terrible. You must replace them. Now, the problem is the microphone's too close to you. It's distorted. So you want to bring it out away, like this level right here. Chunk down here is okay too. Because people are already talking and they're looking down at their notes. And look, now they're talking right in the microphone. Isn't that good? It's called on axis. The microphone shoots out a pattern, what it picks up, and you're speaking into that pattern. So the mic says, hey, I can hear you. That's great. As opposed to, well, this thing doesn't work. This is stupid. Because the mic's going that way. You gotta do like this. Boy, tough guy. Respect. Okay. So, anyway, got the microphone. At this point, is it sounding loud enough? Maybe. You know, if I'm speaking, it's probably fine. If Mr. Berry's speaking, we know it's going to be more than that. Because Mr. Berry is a very forceful and leaderly type man. And therefore, he doesn't need more volume. But if Nick were speaking in this microphone, Nick, what would happen if you were speaking in this microphone? Come, demonstrate.
He's pretty forceful. He's pretty forceful.
Nick, please.
Song for us.
Doesn't have to.
Yeah.
This will only take a moment.
Right.
No one's going to laugh at you except the people watching the tape, really.
Oh boy.
Can I go ahead and say your name for the record?
I'm Nick Valenti.
I don't believe you. Okay. So, go ahead. Just tell us how old you are. You're a sophomore, you said. Is that correct?
That's right.
That means you're in 10th grade.
Yes, I am.
I'm going to ask you questions that require more than a yes or no answer. Nick, what did you do this summer that was fun?
I went biking with my friends a couple times over the summer.
Nice. Mountain biking or just on the roads?
A little bit of both.
Okay. Give me the mic back, please. Thank you. All right. So when Mike talks, when Nick talks, thank you. You're all set. Well, don't sit down yet. Okay. He was still kind of quiet. So I'm going to say, let's turn this up a little bit. Now, should I turn up the whole system? Not so sure. But actually, that sounds pretty good, level-wise, that way. So we're going to turn up the microphone itself. So please, this is microphone 3. Can you please run into that mixer and turn up mic 3? Maybe one click.
All right.
No, it says 10 o'clock, maybe 11 o'clock. Please. Stop it. Phone is definitely turned up because I've got it this distance, and it's quite loud. Quite well. Thank you, Mr. Nick. Good. Okay. So the next question, of course, where's the feedback? Hey! Hey! Don't hear any feedback. Why don't I hear any feedback? A couple of reasons. Biggest one being when we came in and installed, we actually did what I call a sweep. When I'm doing that low pitch up to a high pitch, which isn't much of a range, but we caught, that's the speaking range of most people typically. And what we did was I stood in front of the speaker and did that sweep with my voice. And what happened was feedback would start at some point. And my colleague in the other room would take another filter and he would eliminate the feedback. Let's put it that way. Okay, the equalization, he was able to notch out several pieces of feedback that we found with the two of us going back and forth, talking into this microphone in front of these speakers. So you shouldn't have as big of a problem with feedback as you would have before. The processor is actually removing certain parts of the signal in order to eliminate feedback. So we think we've gotten most of it. That doesn't mean we've eliminated all of it. And the processor doesn't adjust this in real time. So it does not like, it'll just, oh, there's feedback and go clamp down on it. What it means is we've eliminated the most obvious problems, taking them right out of the signal. So that's good. That should help you out quite a bit. But even so, there are some things you don't do. For example, you don't point your microphone at the speakers, which, by the way, are by that clock, which is why I'm pointing it up like that. You shouldn't do this. Now, luckily, the system is set up. You don't have to worry about it now. But the problem is going to be back on those speakers. Those haven't been adjusted that way. They couldn't be. So I would say that's why I said before, when you're in daily use mode and you want to use those speakers, the MON knob, right, Nick? Yeah. Want to be careful about using a microphone near those speakers. They can't be adjusted quite as precisely. So that's a problem too. But that is something on the mixer called low cut, which we can turn on. Also, the console has that too. So lower frequencies can actually be reduced. The switch is actually turned on, believe it or not, for the mixer, so that you don't hear this as much as you would otherwise. That's kind of annoying. If I had to turn the switch on for the mixer, it would be even worse. really bad. That also eliminates electrical noise to a certain degree, which probably helps as well. Like I said, we use existing wiring for the system when we upgraded it. So there have been situations in the past I hear that you've had problems with lights that you hear in the sound system. Hopefully we've gotten rid of that. If not, I'm sure you'll let me know. But already I don't hear any problems, so it's a good sign. And we're all using existing wiring. So a lot of it is using new filters and using the digital processing should help eliminate a lot of the old problems you had. It may give you new problems, but that's something else. All the old stuff is gone. This is the new. Embrace. Okay. Anyway, so the microphone's pretty much set up now. So I could put it to good use. Mr. Bear can always talk to his staff and say, here's what's going on. Okay. Daily use is meant for just that. You come in, you plug in a mic, maybe 2 mics, you're done. The question will come around in the console, and I'll just do it now to save us some time. Wireless microphones. I don't see any in daily use mode. Ooh, problem. No. You have 4 wireless microphone systems up in the console in that booth. You could take one of those, or 2, or even 4, all 4 of those receivers, bring them down here and plug them into these mic jacks. They need power nearby, but you could do that. Plug the microphone, plug the receiver with a microphone cable, like one of these cables right here, which you already own, into the microphone jack, and then it becomes a wireless system. So you could actually have 4 wireless, which you already own, in use in this auditorium. And the reason I bring this up is because when we redesigned and upgraded, we eliminated all the microphone jacks that are around the auditorium itself for a couple of reasons. First of all, my biggest concern is safety. People tend to trip over those cables if you run them into the auditorium. And also, we found people don't tend to use them very often. It's better to use, I think, better to use wireless. But the plates are still there, the wires are still there. If the school decides we want to reactivate 1 or more, it could be done, especially for daily use. The console can't do it, but daily use could add up to 3 more mics back in. Or you can just take the wireless receivers and plug them into mic jacks, and they'll work just fine. In fact, because the microphone receivers are right here, with a clear view of the back of the room and the sides of the stage, they'll work really, really well. So that's a note. If you want to use the wireless, just take 1 or more of those, plug them in. Of course, every time you plug one in, you lose the wired mic itself. So maybe you want to put one in for microphone 6 because that one's off in the corner. That might be a great one to use for wireless. You'll figure it out. You'll play with it. You'll come up with your own solutions. Yes, sir.
So we own a couple of wireless mics that go with independent systems, portable systems. Would those mics be of the same frequency to be picked up by those antenna?
Every microphone is mated to a receiver. Actually, a transmitter is mated to the receiver. You have 4 systems, each one with a receiver, transmitter, and microphone. They've already been tuned. So as long as you have wireless 1, and the receiver and transmitter are both labeled. So you grab wireless 3, for example, just at random, and you plug it into any spot. As long as the transmitter and receiver were boxed together, you won't have any problems. The labels will correspond. If you grab receiver for wireless 1 and the transmitter for wireless 2, they will not work because they have to be together. The label should hold up to basic wear and tear for a while, and you can always relabel them with whiteout or something else if you want more of a permanent labeling. But yeah, they have to match each other, otherwise they won't work. And each one is set to a different frequency. We do that in the installation. We couldn't simply just give you, here are 4 wireless mics and they're all tuned to the same thing. Because the first time you turned on 2, there'd be a problem. So they're all 4 tuned differently, but then they have to match up. So excellent question, just have to look out for that when you actually go to use the wireless. Okay, so that's basically the gist of daily use. I do want to do one more thing, however, before I go any further, before we go to council. I do want to show you something. And to do this, since Matt came back, Matt, my star student from the first session,
Awesome.
Come up here, please, sir. I actually don't go very far. You're going to talk for a minute. Not yet. Remember what Mandy did?
Can we have Bon Jovi, Wanted Dead or Alive? Can we get that?
I don't really know that song well enough to be able to sing it.
I mean,
If we had the
I can
lyrics,
sing it.
I would read them to you in a William Shatner style.
Exactly.
Okay, give me 10 seconds.
Okay.
And then talk. And, put the mic right next to you. Here, you don't put it down here. It's got to be up here. Not in your mouth, but, that's good, right there. 10 seconds.
Potter-esque monologue. I've seen a picture
I know, it
recently.
seems to be the theme lately, doesn't it? which is weird. I don't know how that happened.
That was great.
It happened probably, we were, because now we've renamed CMT to Chamber Singers, and I must have misspoken. And instead of calling it Chamber Singers, I said Chamber of Singers. So then we thought that sounded a lot like Chamber of Secrets, and I think that's how the whole Harry Potter thing started, though.
That's good.
Yeah, it kind of, and it's a great advertisement now that we'll use for our concert poster, for our premiere concert poster. So,
Wow, what a difference, huh?
yeah.
It's huge. So I don't, where would the positive uses of
Tom,
that be?
hang on. Thank you.
Of
Having those monitors?
see, in my mind, the use of the monitors probably would have been for like the musical, because a lot of times when kids are singing on stage, they're waiting to hear back, the reverb back. And so sometimes that causes delay in their singing, you know what I mean? They get off. So a lot of times in productions we'll use monitors to stop that kind of thing from happening, because they're hearing right away what they're singing.
Very good.
So, but it sounds like this particular application wouldn't work, because there'd be they could be anywhere on stage and there'd be feedback. So.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so did you hear what I was doing from the mixer?
Oh, it's huge. Huge difference.
And the idea is you can use the monitors whenever you want to. If you want to use them all the time, that's fine. My position is I'm worried about, more than anything, feedback in daily use, because you don't really have as much control. All you're doing is taking the main outputs and just shadowing it over here. So, but if you really like the difference, you like it sounds better, go ahead and use it. Just again, be aware of that. If you get too close to those speakers, they will feedback. They could feedback. So that's it. But I just wanted you to hear the difference. Okay. Okay. When we upgraded the system, one of the things we had to do was give you the ability to plug in a mixing console like this. This is a British made board called Soundcraft. These things have been in use for hundreds of thousands of years, and are also field tested, battle tested. They're amazing boards. We just put one together in our shop yesterday, actually. So it's a good board, a good solid analog desk. To do all the wiring, though, we had to take all the existing wiring and break it out, which we did. I'm not going to show you, it's in the box behind you right now. But we made this cable. I actually built it myself. And this has 20 wires in it, 20 pairs actually. And this goes from the existing wiring you had, and then it comes out here in a very long, I think it's a 25-foot cable, plus this fan out. All of these connectors are labeled. This one says mic 1, mic 2, and so forth. All the way up through 16. I've already plugged them in. You could, I suppose, reconnect them to different spots. Kids being kids could play around with that, I suppose. So you might want to, when you come in to use the board, make sure everything's plugged in the way you want to see it. Normally 1 through 16 makes sense, because that takes care of the 15 and the 16 you have from the stage front, and that's fine. Then you have your outputs over here, which I'll get to in a minute. And you have 8 more inputs right here, which, as you'll notice, there's nothing there. Those are totally open. And just to make things even more interesting, you also have, these are 2 more stereo inputs right here, 1 and 2. These are tip ring sleeve. By the way, just so everyone has a note of it, this is a tip ring sleeve connector. This looks just like an 1/8 inch connector, a 3.5 millimeter. The difference being that it is much larger. Honestly, the wiring is exactly the same. It's just a much larger connector. This is what you use for iPod input. This is what they use for computer outputs, for headphones and so forth. Actually, a lot of places, you can buy headphones which have the 1/8 inch, and you get the 1/4 inch adapter that screws on over it or slips on over it. So this is something you can find. They're pretty ubiquitous. You can find them pretty much anywhere, and they're good to use. But there's a lot of these connectors. As you can see, there's a whole bunch of them here, here, and so forth. There's a lot of these in use. This happens to be monitor 1. I'll plug that back in. So all the inputs from the stage are here. The outputs, this is monitor 1, this is monitor 2. The stereo inputs are here, which we haven't set up for you, but you might want to use those. Here you have, these are main left and right, or mix left and right. This is left, this is right. It's labeled on the back of the board, in case you're not sure. There's also a mix C for center. The way the system is set up right now, you actually don't have a stereo output. You only have the speakers in the middle. So why did I give you a stereo wired output? Take a wild stab at why I gave you stereo when you don't have a stereo system. because someday you might. Someday you might want left. I'm not again, not trying to sell. Just saying, by doing it this way, the processor does the work of making it mono in the center, but that way, if you ever wanted to do it, you could. And there are other things you can do with this too. This gives you other options. For example, you want to do record out. All right, the board isn't set up for doing record out. There's a way to do it. We'll talk about it in a minute. You could simply take the right output here, remove it, plug something in there. Now you would have a right output. That could be out, and then there's nothing else you do from the board. It's already configured to do left and right, and now it's going to go ahead and send it to that output. So you can actually plug a device in here on that output and make that your record out. That's one output. You also plug a device into your center mix here. We'll get to that in a little while. And if you really wanted to get creative, you could unplug both of them, and probably the right one would work. Plug right into center, which you feed into your system, and then left and right here could go to a record device. So in a way you're bypassing what I just created for you. What that gives you now though is because you don't need stereo here, it doesn't make a difference on the output, you only need one output really to be working for the system, then you would then, the center mix would feed here, and then you could plug in stereo here. So you could actually do a stereo signal on a recording device. So there's different options. I'm going kind of fast here. The idea is this gives you some flexibility which we didn't originally plan on, but actually works out in your favor in a lot of ways. There are other ways of doing record outputs as well. For example, you could use the additional auxiliary centers, which are here. You have 1 through 6 total. We're only using 1 and 2. So 3 through 6 could be used for something else. Press feed, recording something up here, recording to it. You could do a podcast, or do something that's live, streaming web, or streaming, to the internet, or to something else. Streaming to cell phones or whatever. You have 4 more outputs here to play with, on top of the C. So it's a lot of stuff you could be working with. So a lot of options. But in normal use of this board, the way we've set it up, I'm doing left and right here. Let the processor sort that out. Monitors 1 and 2 are here. That's it. The only other piece you need to be aware of is the power cord, which is right here. And although it's hard to see it with things, actually I'm going to unplug this. There's a little power button right here. That is the on-off button. Obviously it needs to be depressed. If it's not sad, depressed, it won't, work. So go ahead and see that, and then I'll plug these back in. Okay? You're good? Okay. Nick, I'm going to use you as my guinea pig. If you're okay with that. Okay, you look at this board and you go, holy shnikes, look at all this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? My goodness, this is overwhelming. Are your heart racing? Are you sweating a little bit? Everyone does that. It's fine. Don't worry, you don't have to worry about it because I'm going to make this simple for you. Thank you.
It's still there.
Not bother you.
They're
Okay.
deranged.
This is 16 channels. It's another 8 channels right here, okay?
Alright.
So it's 16 times this right here. So then you have 16 iterations, 16 of this right here. Boom. 16 of them. 8 more. So but the thing is, they're all identical. If you master channel 1, you just mastered 1 through 24. Okay? Now it's not so bad. You don't have to look at all this and go, I'm not going to be able to memorize all of those knobs and buttons and faders. No. Memorize 1. And not even all of this. Because a lot of the stuff on this board won't do anything right now. So that's fine. So you're not learning as much as you think. Okay? So that's good. So we have all the inputs are here and here. A couple inputs here. The rest is outputs. We'll get to those.
So anything that has the gray back on is an input, basically.
Well, this is all inputs right here. Yep. I guess, yeah, the gray works because you're right. There's a gray back right here. And that's an input as well. Those are your 2 stereo inputs. We'll get to those a little later. Okay. So we go top to bottom. This top, this being bottom, because that's how the signal kind of flows through the board. Not really, but that's for training purposes, that's how it's going to work. Okay, I'm going to show you the most important knob on this board. Are we still recording?
You're still recording, yeah.
Okay. The most important on this knob on this board, more important than power, although that's pretty important too, plugging things in, yada yada. All the stuff here you're going to see, this is the most important. Gain. Gain is the most important knob on this strip, on this column, on this vertical chunk. If gain is turned down to nothing, you're wasting your time. I'm going to be blunt here. And if you call me in a panic, you're wasting my time if the gain isn't turned up. Because if this isn't turned up, the board doesn't hear a thing. The signal's not even getting in. It's kind of like, I like to use water as an analogy here. If you have a shutoff valve and it's turned all the way off, water's not getting through it. If you turn this up a little bit, a little trickle gets through. A little more, now we start to have some real substance. Yeah, turn all the way up, it's going to go into feedback. But I will start off with 12 o'clock, pointing straight up. Okay? Always start with that. I'm going to give you guys in this training a little different view than the last group because it's going on the tape, I want to make sure I get some details recorded here. But this is going to be turned all the way, this is turned up halfway at least to start. If you start using it and realize there's a problem, you'll turn this down. Do you turn this fader down? No. No, you don't turn this fader down. Not when you're setting up the board. When you are using the board during a show, play with this fader all you want. Don't really touch this one. Yeah.
So this one's kind of like, I'm like a master, so to speak, of
Yep.
all of them.
That's a good way of looking at it. Sure. Sure. Because this manipulates when the signal comes into the board, and then once you leave the EQ section, like you mentioned, the gray back stuff, once you get past this, these are the aux outputs, pan, and this is your send. This sends it to the main mix. This is how much of this signal is going into your overall mix. So this is the last thing you actually do is send it on to your section over here. Okay. So the important thing is first you have to have a signal. So you start off with that, and this is how much it contributes to the overall mix. That phrasing is important. How much it contributes to the overall mix. You're going to see that here, you're going to see it in subgroups, and you're going to see it in the auxes. Okay? So we're going to revisit, you're going to hear that phrase a lot in the next few minutes. But this has to be up. I'm going to skip ahead here because like Nick pointed out the main fader there. I also want to kind of go over gain structuring, which doesn't mean anything right now, but feedback. Everyone always fights feedback. Give me as much oomph as you can without the feedback. How do you do it? Just like the daily use mixer, but a little more precise on this one. Okay, there are 3 things you're going to touch for setting gain structure, for setting up the board for use. Okay, first one I'm going to go with is actually way over here in the output section. I know we haven't talked outputs yet, but this is where you find your mix. Use yellow. Not pan is yellow too. Don't let that throw you off. Mix is yellow. Put that to 0. Okay? There's a name for that. It doesn't matter. Then you go over to your fader for that channel, whichever channel you're using. In this case, channel 1. Also bring this up to 0. And the next thing you're going to do, well, this has to be set off to mix at least. It's okay, so I put it in mix. Now, a signal, something has to be in channel 1. A microphone, some kind of source, noise, something. This is where you adjust this. I am talking blah, 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 feedback. So I turn it down a little bit, maybe a little more. Just a hair. Do I hear feedback? Yeah, it's still a little ringing. Turn it down just a little bit more. This is where you're getting more precise. Are you touching this fader? No. Are you touching this fader? No way. The whole purpose of this exercise is getting as much as you can out of this red gain knob. And then, what that gives you is, now when you want to use this source, you don't play with this one, you play with this. This should be plenty loud. Like it's maybe even too loud, but the point is it's not feedback yet. Once you have feedback, you turn down maybe a click. When I say click, I mean like one of these little things, maybe a little less, depends on your taste.
Sean, does each column correspond to a microphone input?
Yes.
So mic 1, mic 2, 3.
Yes.
So on.
Individual channels, and they all correspond to, like for example, this microphone 1 is channel 1. Yep. So, okay. But now, so let's say it's too loud where it is right now. You have plenty of room to turn it down. And in the event that you need to turn up a little more, you still have some ability to go up. It's called headroom. You have a little bit more. Usually, the whole point of this is you set your feedback level, turn it down. Now it should be extremely loud because your main output's turned up to where it's supposed to be as well. This is turned up. So right now the system is pretty loud on that input. You shouldn't need to turn it up more. Again, if you need to, you've got some more space. But you don't need a lot because right now there's quite a bit to work with, and you have all the way down to 0. So that gives you a lot of range to work with. Okay, previous knobs didn't have that, did they? Yeah. So this is all set. So now you can use it. And you do the same thing for every channel. Now, this is something that tech people do. The director should make sure this has been done. Nick, this is where you're going to have to really understand this. If you need me to go over it a different way, that's fine. But it's so critical to set up a board like this way. 0, 0, mess with this thing. Not EQ, not pan aux, none of this exists. It's all gone. It doesn't exist, la-di-da-di-da, doesn't here. All that matters is these 3 pieces. When those are set up, then you can close this fader and repeat on this one. Go all the way across everything you're using. Now, if you want, you can probably duplicate some of this stuff and say, well, they're all around a little above 12 o'clock, and just turn them all up, and probably you're going to be fine. They'll probably save you a ton of time. Then you just whiz through all the rest you're going to use. Chunk, you're all done. A little different on wireless, because wireless has a little less of a range on it, but you'll figure it out. So anyway, that's how you set up this, and this together. But we're going back now. I talked about this knob. Okay, now giving you the gain lesson. There's a little button here that says 100 hertz. It's a little gray button. I recommend you use this for microphones. I'm not pushing it in because I don't know if you're going to use mic 1. You might not. Matter of what you want to use. But if you do use a microphone plug, push that in. It's called a cutoff. It eliminates things on the lower frequencies, which you don't want anyways. It's going to be hand noise in the mic. It's going to be electrical noise, things that you just don't want in the sound path. Press that button, it helps eliminate, it reduces. EQ, I'm not going to go over EQ. It's part of what you will play with if you want. Turn the EQ on by this little gray button right here, but it gives you 4 different ways to adjust your EQ. High frequency, mid-high, mid-low, and low. And these are basically just boost or trim. And so in these pieces, it might actually give you a chance to adjust where in the frequencies. You know, as men, our voices are typically lower. Women's voices are typically higher. You know, I step on my dog's foot, it squeals, it's a very high frequency. It's also loud, but that's the high frequency. Just in case you're not sure what high and low means, making sure you're all clear on that. So you go ahead and adjust this to taste. I recommend you use this with the system because you do have the older speakers. They have a good range, but they could use a little help. Because what I've done is I've tried to make sure the speakers are flat for this room. So it may not sound great to you now, so that's when you use the EQ to make it sound a little better. The danger is, of course, if you say, well, this microphone is for this student, Nick is using mic 1, Matt's using mic 2. What if Nick and Matt switch microphones in the middle of a performance? Well, the EQ is set up. Now it's 2 guys, it's probably not going to be a big deal, but still, just be aware of that. More likely you should just set the EQ so that it sounds good no matter who's using it, and then you should be able to, that'll probably be the same for everybody. But again, that's to taste. The whole point is it's all here, and it's all for just this channel. You turn it on with that little gray button.
And red is on.
Red is something we don't use.
Alright, so
Sorry. Yep.
what's
Don't touch the red button.
these are for that's a high frequency, that's
Yep.
I'm actually like reading it now. So for like a woman's voice, you'd probably want to adjust these knobs, and for a guy's voice, you want to adjust these knobs.
More or less.
No.
Well, when I say women's voices are higher, they're higher. They're not, they're not like when a woman talks, dogs howl. Super high frequency, mosquito tone. It's not like that. The human speaking voice is in the mid-low to mid-high. The mids are basically where we talk. Male or female, mids are where we talk. Men are a little more on the low, typically, an average. Women are more to be likely in the mid-high. So that's where you make your adjustments more than anything else. Lows and highs. Low could be called rumble, subwoofer. Human voice doesn't really speak low unless you're James Earl Jones or a couple of different actors. Your voice just doesn't go that low naturally. So that's not really as much of an issue. If you're using a CD or something like that, then you want to play with that a little more. Because your low driver is really good. Your highs are good, your low is really good. So that's good, your subwoofer. The mids are human range for the most part. Up here, the high frequency, you can't, Mariah Carey can maybe sing in that range, but for the most part, we don't speak in that. It's the overtones, the harmonics, what people in music call sparkle, 4K and above, like cymbals and stuff like that, is up in here. So again, if you're mixing the voice, you're mixing in this range. male, female, but they all apply. This stuff is for more like music. These are for music. Or if you're doing drums, drums are definitely affected in these too. You know, some instruments, you'll play around with, you'll figure it out. Bassoon, down here. Piccolo, up here. That kind of thing.
This is all from a channel 2, right? For daily use, we never come up here. And
Correct.
Okay.
This is dead
Yeah.
in daily use mode. And vice versa. In console mode, daily use music does nothing. Until your student goes, hee hee hee, click.
Yeah.
I think in front of Mr. Barry, he takes care of the situation. Yeah, okay. I did skip over one thing, I'm sorry. Up in here, you'll see there are red buttons, and this one, it actually has a light next to it. This is the same, every 4 channels has this button. This is 48V, phantom power, it's 48 volts. The hanging microphones and condenser microphones. Microphones are very sensitive, need to be powered by the console. They need to have that boost, because otherwise, a normal microphone has a gimme, gimme, gimme approach. Okay, I need signal. The condensers are gimme, gimme, gimme. They need more. They boost. They got a lot more range, both in frequency and in dynamics. So they are asking for power. And that's how you give it to them. You turn on 4 channels at a time. And the reason I did microphones 13 through 16 when I'm not using 12 is because that way 13 through 16 come in here as a block of 4, which needs condenser power. Phantom power, 48 volts. So pressing this, all 4 hanging mics are now powered without anything else you have to do. I don't recommend you turn phantom power on for anything else on the board, unless you're using a microphone that needs it. And the solution, the question is, well, if you don't remember condenser versus dynamic, which you probably won't, condenser needs phantom power, 48 volt, dynamic does not. The mic that Matt lets borrow is dynamic, doesn't need phantom power. If everything else is working just fine, and the mic is still not getting a signal, turn on phantom power.
So that's like a last resort.
Well, and from your point of view, yes. Once you get more comfortable with what microphones need and which ones don't, then you'll just know this is a condenser needs phantom power, condenser needs this light beyond. But until that day comes, you can safely assume that all the mics you typically use are not going to need that. With the exception of these 4, 13 through 16 need phantom power. Without it, they will not function. And I'm not talking like you won't hear them very much. You won't hear them at all. They just don't work.
No, and so the wireless are also dynamic mics.
Sort of. Sorry. These are asking good questions. Dynamics, because they are the wireless microphones, because they are sent through a transmitter which is powered. Normally, you can on a wireless you can actually switch between line level and mic level. These are all set for mic level, and in this case, yes, dynamic would be the range they fit into in terms of volume. Because condensers are very quiet, need phantom power. Dynamics just need you to turn this up and turn that up. So yeah, in a way they are. I think of dynamic more of like a handheld versus a, which has its own power and batteries and all that. But it's an interesting question. Thank you.
As far as the hanging mics go, you're giving Nick the advice that if you get it in the general range, you probably move all the cables the same. With those 4 right there, though, the 4 hanging mics be quite different in everything you do?
Yes. Thank you for asking that question. Because they are, first of all, condensers, which means they have a much more wide range, both frequency and volume. And they have very specific pickup patterns when you aim those microphones. On a dynamic, you tend to kind of point it in the right direction, and it's vague. Not really a big deal. Usually they're pretty wide. On hanging mics, they only normally do a certain pattern of how they pick things up. You have to aim them. If it's not within that area, you can literally hear the microphone, and now I don't. Now I do. Now it's not quite that dramatic, but it's close. I mean, you really will hear a difference. So with these, you're going to have a very different response, and that means a different EQ. So you're right, good catch. You might want to set these up generically, but then this would probably be a different setting where you might set up 1 and then 13 and 14, 15, 16 might be close. I would say set up 13, then take 14 and 16, mirror them, and then adjust as you need to. Just to save yourself time. I mean, you can literally go through and do each one individually, but who wants to spend that much time on EQ? Come on. So
He just has to know where 13 is hanging from to have someone stand underneath it to be
Right.
able to
Yep.
test that out. Okay.
And as I understand, there's going to be all by proscenium, which you really can't see here. You see the left side over there, that little corner of the proscenium? the little angled piece down over the stage. Okay, 13 is actually going to be a little bit in from there. I'm not sure where exactly yet, but 13 is going to be over there. It's going to go 13, 14, 15, and 16 will be over on the right side in from that Presidian edge as well. So, like I had mentioned to you before, I need to put together a drawing of how the system is built. It's called an as-built. I'll do that. And that'll allow you to know by looking at it how the system is set up so you don't have to guess where is this microphone, what happens here, and all that. It's all going to be done. And that creates something that the school can distribute as needed to people. Okay. Good questions. Let's move on now to here, which is the output side of the input channel. Wow, that makes no sense, but in a way it does. So it comes in here, and then it's been manipulated, and then this is where you start sending it places. Okay, this is where you get lots of knobs, and you go, oh man, I'll never remember all these knobs. You don't have to. These four don't mean anything. The gray and the blue, they're having their civil war and nothing's happening. You're all done with that. All you have to worry about is green, because the system is not wired for this. Okay, and one, now here it's called aux1. The Brits like to use aux instead of monitor. There's also, you can also hear something called foldback. But aux in this case is monitor 1, aux 2 is monitor 2. Every channel has its own aux knob. But I won't worry about these because we're not using them. What that means is, how much are you contributing to the overall mix for aux1 on that channel? When I have this microphone, whatever it is, how much of that mic am I sending to aux1 mix, monitor 1 mix? A little, a lot, you choose. This has nothing to do with the auditorium, the mixer. We haven't even gotten there yet. Okay, this doesn't exist yet. This is a separate, independent send. This has nothing to do with. So if you're mixing down in here, this isn't changing. It will not change. It's not supposed to. So, well, there are always caveats to what I'm saying. But generally, this, however much you turn this up, will affect how much of it appears in the final mix of all this. Like when you're mixing for the auditorium, it's called the house mix. When you're doing the house mix here, it appears here on this yellow fader. Okay? All those faders, whether it's 1 through 16 or the ones over here on the, the other side, 17 through 24, they all come to here, ultimately. Usually. On the auxes, they all come to here. On the output side, which we haven't gone over yet. We will. So everything, all the little green knobs, every single channel is individual inputs. How much is going from there? This is the overall mix. This is the whole system. Or I should say the whole aux1 / monitor 1 mix. If this isn't turned up, that monitor will not work. Okay?
Okay, you may ask just a basic question, it might be
Sure.
simple, but so when you're saying monitor though, you're talking about the monitors on the stage?
Yes.
Okay, so which one is monitor 1? To the stage right?
Left, actually. Stage right, yes. Stage
Stage
right,
right, stage
which
right.
is front of house left.
Okay.
House left, stage right is over here, monitor 1.
Okay.
This is again where the diagrams are going to be helpful to you.
Sure, okay.
Monitor 2 is house right, stage left.
Okay.
Okay. So that's good to know.
So these are only controlling those monitors,
Yep.
but I thought this whole column controlled one mic input.
Yes. The difference is the microphone comes in and you do all this stuff, and then you're going to send
That's
it
output to the
outward.
monitors. Okay.
Exactly.
Got it.
Right.
Got it.
Right.
Can I just interrupt? So someone from the facilities department is here
Okay.
to look at the stage with you to determine what additional materials you might need.
Okay.
Would it be possible to spend 5 minutes with that person?
Sure. If you guys can wait a few minutes, sure.
I can wait a tiny bit, but I do have some.
Okay, almost done with the input side here. Okay, the next one down is yellow, the pan button or pan knob. And since I've already told you your system is not stereo, you're thinking, why should I even care? That's an excellent question, Nick. Thank you for asking it. The truth is you don't need it for left and right at this point, but let's say you have something coming in the system and you want to augment one or the other. Let's say there's a stereo effect and you want to make it a little louder on one side or the other, just in terms of you're increasing the volume on one in the mix. you can actually turn this to left, and it makes the left side of the mix louder. It doesn't make the left side louder in your mix, but what it does is, in the mix that's coming into this board, like from an iPod computer or whatever, it'll actually increase that level. So let's say you have two characters talking. Let's say you're doing a prologue or something where the left and right are talking, and the left isn't quite loud enough. You can't turn the whole thing up because then they both get louder. What you can do is turn up the side that's not as loud, but using the pan knob that'll increase it, the balance will shift that direction, and now they're more balanced in terms of what you're trying to do. Pan may not be all that useful to you yet, but it might help you in that situation where you have mixes that are coming in and you need to adjust somehow for that reason. Otherwise, leave it just in the center, and as you touch the knob, you find out that it actually, when you get to center, it actually clicks. Not like, but you'll feel it. Trust me, you'll feel
It's
it.
like on a car stereo because like I know my dad's it has like a little sliding knob and it like, clicks right in the
Okay, yeah, all right, yeah. Very similar, right, good. Okay, next. This red button here is called mute. That turns off the channel for this part. I do not believe it affects the aux outputs, but it does affect the fader. This is useful for a student who goes back for a costume change wearing a wireless mic. You have this all set up at a level you really like, you don't want to, or you can't get to it. You can simply go doop, mute, and it's off. And they can be telling horrible stories about everyone else all they want. The audience is not going to hear it until you go unmute. So mute is a way, and there are probably other uses for it, but typically it's used for, you set it up and then you just hit mute and then you have to worry about it until the cue comes. Okay, activate that input. So that's pretty much what I would use that for, and that's about it. The next four, this tells the board, where am I routing this signal? This mic 1, right? Now that I've done this stuff with mic 1, now it has to go someplace. And if you use these four choices, and they're not in one or the other, you can do all four of them or any combination. You have C, mix, 1, 2, and 3, 4. C sends it to the black fader, which is not hooked up. But that's the one where you could do the record output, I said. That might be an option. So if you want to identify which channels go to that from the mix, you could do that. You could say, well, I want to send these inputs but not these, and you could actually select C and the ones you want to send to that. Now remember, this doesn't affect the auditorium mix, but it could affect something that's patched in back here. The other one, of course, important is mix itself, which is here, the yellow one. That one goes out your left and right. Mix left, mix right. So this one you must have if you want to use the microphone in the mix. Now what if you don't want to? What would be an application where you might not want the mic to appear in the audience? Do you think anything on the top of your head?
Just like here, you want to be able to have someone give you directions, so it's not going in there?
Yes. Perfect example. It's exactly what I use it for. If you don't have an intercom, this is it's a one-way intercom. You could actually do that where you don't have it assigned to mix at all. Instead, you might route it to, say, monitor 2, so it goes over there. Turn it up here. Now, this won't do anything. This fader doesn't do a thing now because it's not going to the mix. It's only going, none of these matter. C, 1, 2, 3, none of this stuff matters. All you're going to do now is plug it in and it's going to be routed to monitor 2. Okay? So that's cool. Another possibility would, now you get into the subgroups, which are 1, 2, and 3, 4. You could do something similar here. Not quite the microphone talking to the back of the stage. That's the application of, you don't plug it in here, just do the aux and you're all set. Okay. Let's say you have a drum kit and it's got 8 microphones that it's using. Okay? Do you really want to take 8 faders at a time and make them louder and softer and all this? No, you don't want to do that. Do you want to hit 8 mute buttons? No, you don't want to do that either. I'm talking to my daughter. Yes, no. Okay, no offense. Okay, so this is what I would do. I would assign all of these only to 1 and 2, not C and not mix. Just 1 and 2 for all 8 of those. And then those appear here. So now this is your master volume for the entire group. So now you would raise this up to 0, whatever you want to do with it. And then you can make adjustments on each individual input, but you're not adjusting all of them. And then when the drum kit's done, or you're sick of hearing him hog the rhythm section, he's gone. And you're not playing with all these, just stay where they are. You don't have to mute them, you don't have to do anything except take this down to nothing. Where this might be more helpful, than, I don't think you're gonna have a drum kit with 8 mics on it. Where this might be useful to you as a school is on the hanging mics. Because yes, you're gonna probably do some adjusting on these, but more likely than not, you're gonna have all these either on or off at the same time. You're probably not going to use these individually, because the idea is they blanket the whole section of the stage. So this is something where you might want to consider going to one, 2, or 3. You have to do them both at the time. 1, 2, or 3, 4. You can't do 1 or 2, or it has to be these together. But you could send these to 3 and 4. Then hanging mics on, hanging mics off. Some hanging mics, no hanging mics. More, less, and so forth. And if you need to change individual ones for some reason, you can still do that. But these faders can stay up all the time. And then all you have to do is adjust whichever pair you're using. That's what subgroups are for. Now I know you have submasters on the lighting board, so it's probably a similar concept. On this board, with your inputs, this may never be useful to you, but that doesn't mean you won't find uses. The thing about subgroups is once you start using them, hey, you know, I could maybe use it for this. You might find a use, especially you because you're a sophomore. You have time to play. So that's something to think about. Okay, so quick recap, 1 and 2, 3 and 4 right here. These already are to mix, because if you don't have them to mix, you bring this up, nothing happens. Doesn't really do anything. Now, there is a reason why you would have this go up and not have it go into the mix. It's called special effects. You might have an effects unit of a computer probably at this point, this day and age. It would then it would be out of this. It would then be sent out of the board into an outboard piece of gear, and then return back into the board somewhere else, and then it would go on. Okay, it's called insert and return. I don't know if you'll ever use this, but this is one reason you would have these turned off. That's the only thing I can think of off the top of my head. Otherwise, you would normally put these on to mix, and then as you bring this up, the whole group goes to your mix. What I think you should consider doing over here on the main mix in the C is, rather than selecting C over on all these channels and saying I want to assign this channel to C, save yourself a lot of effort, especially if you might use this for recording. This is your main. So every time you do mixing with like 24 inputs plus the stereos, it all goes here. You already know that. But you can also send this mix, you can also mono sum it to C right here. So all you have to do is use these two faders together, and or just set this at 0, wherever 0 is, and then this fader goes up and down as you're using the system, whole system, and this is just mirroring what this is doing. So the output of the board is all being done through this fader, well this fader too, but you don't even touch that fader. You play with this fader, and then you do your mixes, and you can forget it, because this mix is automatically going to here, which goes to your record out. So again, so that's even less complicated. The only reason you wouldn't want to do it this way is if you have something where, for whatever reason, you don't want all the inputs to show up in your main mix. Then you might have to do it where you select which inputs come from here over into the C fader. But remember, this has nothing to do with your system in the auditorium. You will never hear a difference in the auditorium. Why? Because nothing's plugged in. Once you plug something in, this makes a difference. But until then, I'm just giving you some ideas here how to do recording, or whatever. Okay, we've already briefly touched on, these are your two master outputs for auxes, aux 1, aux 2. 3, 4, 5, and 6 are in here, and since it's not wired, you'll figure this out on your own or not use it, whatever you prefer. If these are not turned up, you will not hear them. Okay, the last pieces are right here. We don't play with this stuff in here. You can, but it doesn't do any good. Stereo, right here. There's two stereo inputs coming on jacks, which look like this. Tip ring sleeve, 1/4-inch phone plug. They're actually right above aux 1, monitor 1, and monitor 2. Right above them is stereo input 1, stereo input 2. It takes 2 of these. So if you have an iPod, you need to turn it into 2 of these somehow. Cable will do it just fine. The console doesn't need all that fancy direct box stuff. The console will take whatever you send at it. And you've got plenty of inputs to do 2 lines in. Or just throw it on the stereo piece. Done. The only thing about using these pieces are they have a gain knob, so that's your volume. That's all you get for volume. And then 2 EQ pieces, and that's it. You don't get all kinds of other fancy, I mean, there's auxes right here, but I'm not sure you'd use those. You can, but I've never seen anybody use them. Hey, maybe you'll be the first. Okay, we don't use TalkBack, don't worry about this. There's your board.
So the auxiliaries that you're referring to here are auxiliaries that are accessed back here. They are not connected to the daily use auxiliaries.
That's correct. Okay, unfortunately, we have overlapping terms. The auxes on this are actually your monitors. So monitor 1 and 2 are plugged here, are plugged into aux 1 and aux 2 on this. And the British just like to use aux for their monitors, or they can use foldback. It's another term they use. That's everything. So,
What's this side?
and basically more. It's more. It says 8, it says
More.
17 through 24, yeah. In fact, I'm trying to set this up, I'm going to do this right now actually. I'm going to set up a wireless system for you, one of them, okay? And we're going to do that on 17 through 24. Any of them will work. They're identical channels, all of them, so we don't need to worry about it. Male XLR end goes into the XLR. You can't mess that up. You cannot mess it up. It literally, so don't worry about that. Oh my goodness, I'm terrible with cables. No, it'll be fine. Okay, this is the receiver for the wireless. Okay, the female end here goes into the male end here, like so. Okay, now this is sending a signal to this channel right here, 17. Of course, it won't send anything without power, so we have to put power in here, and that's all you have to worry about. So power, XLR, this transmitter is now hooked up into the board. I wouldn't put it right here, but
And all four mics will go to this one, or just one per one?
no, it's a 1 per 1. Good question. Yeah, every one of them has its own individual transmitter receiver set.
Okay.
This is the power cable. Again, you can't mess this up either. The little tiny piece here, which is the DC current, that plugs into the receiver. This bigger piece off the transformer plugs into the wall, or the power strip, hopefully.
Will they be able to transmit through that glass?
Yes.
We will.
They can transmit to the motor block too.
Okay.
Not as well as I'd like them to, but they will transmit through it. Okay, those are the components of this. This is the transmitter itself. It's a belt pack. It actually has a little piece right here, which can be pulled out. I'm not going to pull on it real hard, but that pulled out, mounted on a belt, whatever, tie, whatever you need. The only thing you have to worry about with this is put batteries in it. Do not leave batteries in there. Do not leave batteries in here.
9 volt or AAA?
These are actually AA's.
Double
And
A's?
supply, it comes with 2 to start. And this is actually pretty good. This won't eat them up that fast, but if you leave them in, or worse, in and turned on, yeah, they'll go pretty fast. But in use, you should be able to get many hours out of this. Several performances certainly, although it doesn't hurt to check. In fact, both the receiver and the transmitter will tell you how much power you have left in the batteries, a little in the window, so that's good. This is the microphone itself. This is the XLR connector. It's a different type than the kind you use for like this cable. It's a special kind, only for wireless. Again, only goes in one way. You can't screw it up, although you could force it, which is bad. You just want to kind of turn it slowly, put a little pressure on it, until at some point today, it drops in, just like that. It just dropped in, chunk. So you want the button facing you apparently. Isn't that nice? Okay, so now the microphone is plugged in. This is the mic right here. In this box, there's a lot of accessory pieces, including the little clip-on for this. The microphone is here, the silvery part. So talking like this doesn't work. Holding it this close to your mouth and talking, bad. Clip-on is good. This will pick up very well from this. I learned this the hard way. I walked around the stage and went, does this sound better? No. Put it right here. It worked out great. So that's it. These are very rugged. These will last a long time. Just so you know, when I put this job together, designed it, I was speccing a different type of microphone. My boss said, give him a better quality mic, better quality set. So I did. We ate the cost because he said, don't give him a lousy mic. More economical. No, give him a better one. So it's good. These actually have more frequency range, more dynamic range. This is a better microphone element. So it's a good mic.
A lot of times we're going to probably use these for daily use. I would just plug them in, like you said, to the front, number 1, 3, or 4, and then just run it like a normal like you have in the past, right? These are not
Yeah.
different than
In
that.
fact, if you notice right here, and then Paul mentioned earlier about labeling, it says WL1, and the receiver also says WL1, so they made up.
Sure.
And I was going to take them all out of the boxes, then I realized no, because things will get misplaced.
Yeah.
Also, there's all these accessory pieces that you guys still have.
Yeah.
In the event that you decide to either buy or rent or whatever, you want to put a rack in here which has the wireless. All these things are possible. If you do that, and I either you lose those or I take them back to our shop, that's bad.
Yeah.
So I'd rather keep them here. That way, for the event, if you ever decide you want a more permanent installation rather than all this temporary stuff, you can do it.
Okay.
Because my impression is that you want some flexibility. Obviously, you want to be able to take stuff to daily use. Someday, maybe you'll do something differently, but for right now,
Yeah.
the way the system is designed, they're totally portable. So I would recommend, if anything, you take one and or two only down there for use, and leave the other two up here. Maybe even leave them hooked up completely, so that you always have 2 or 3 up here to use, and then one that may go back and forth.
Sure.
It doesn't matter which one. It can be 1, 3, 4, it doesn't matter, as long as you know that it's being transported up and down.
Okay. So 1, 3, and 4 are daily use, or 1, 3, and 5?
1, 3, 5 mics are daily use. I'm just talking about wireless systems, because they're also numbered 1 through 4.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I missed that. What about, just to, because I can see this being used at times, like you said, with the iPod. So for the iPod to go in, we have to convert the one 8-inch to a 2/4 inches, you're saying? So just buy a splitter to go into this?
Yeah, you can buy, there are cables you can buy which will do that. There's a company called, an online site called monoprice.com, which is what I use personally and also professionally. And I just tell you the name of the site. It takes, to get to New York takes a week, at least for shipping, but the prices, their freight is expensive, but the price on the cabling is insanely low.
Okay.
And I'm talking like, I can buy the same, Radio Shack, I can buy the exact same cable for 20 bucks, and I pay like 80 cents for monoprice.
Okay.
Yeah, if I pay 3 bucks for shipping, who cares?
Yeah.
I paid 4 bucks for it versus 20 plus tax.
Yeah.
Monoprice or Merit Line is another one that I've heard of, it's really good.
You send a link for that one too, and you send the...
Oh yeah, sure, sure.
Alright, so like, you can use it for an iPod or a
Computer.
CD player.
Sure.
Oh yeah, that would work too.
Yep.
And which
DVD player.
line is it going into though? And from the back?
Well, now on this board, you can put it wherever you want. I would personally recommend one of 2 things. Either put it on, either put it on one of these input channels here, the mono input channels, and then you could do 2 of them that way, or run on the stereo. You have 2 stereo inputs. If you don't want to take up any of these input channels, you want to use all your wireless and then still have other channels left over, perfectly cool. Run it back here on the stereo inputs. These have to be 1/4 inch back here,
Yeah.
tip ring sleeve.
And two things.
2 of them, yeah. So you'd have an 1/8 inch split up to 2 1/4 inch tip ring sleeve, just like these other pieces here.
Kind of like this.
Yeah, that would do too. That's an 1/8 inch too, yeah, very good. It's right there.
But you would need a splitter though, that's only one, right?
Right.
Unless you're plugging in the mono one, right?
Well, no, these devices are all stereo.
Okay.
So you're going to have 2 of those come out.
Okay.
Typically, what you might run into is you can get an RCA 1/4 inch, because then what would happen is you can buy, through Monoprice or whomever, you could buy a cable which is the 1/8 inch out of the iPod, for example, and then, like the iPod I think from Monoprice, which was 1/8 inch out, it has 3 RCAs out, one's video. Never worked, but at least I have the other 2. So that's 2 RCAs, and the RCAs could go to an adapter like that to go into 1/4 inch.
I have one of those, but I never got the video to work. Did you have the same issue?
Yeah. Oh well.
Amount of hours I
You know,
spent
for-
trying to figure out why that didn't work.
For $1.50 versus Apple's 30, I was like, pfft.
No, I bought one for like 40, whatever it was at the time. So I was like,
okay.
gosh,
Yeah.
you know.
No, what you need is, and again, if you're doing just a cable kind of thing, then you need whatever the device is, whether it's 2 RCAs, an 1/8 inch, 3.5 millimeter, whatever.
Yeah.
It's either going to have to be 2 RCAs to something you can plug into here, or the 1/8 inch split to something else.
But the one I'm talking about that I already bought, I can just use that, so I don't have to buy anything right now. That should work for our purpose.
One more time, what did you buy?
It was just from the Apple store. It's just the white one. Goes from your iPod to the 3 RGB. It never had the video to work, but as long as the red and the white worked, I should be able to hook that up to this.
Yes, so you need an adapter going from RCA to 1/4 inch.
Yes.
2 of those.
Yeah.
And you'd be fine. Absolutely, yeah, that'll work.
All right, great. Well, no. Yeah, it doesn't go to quarter inch. It's got the yellow and the white yellow, you know what I'm saying? So I would need to convert it from
Right.
those to this.
Right, that's what I'm saying. If you, that cord you've got, 1/8 inch to 3 RCAs.
Yeah.
Because actually, it's not even, it's 5, on the end, it's 1/8 inch. It's actually 5 pins on that one.
Okay.
All you need is 3 of them. What you need is the red and white.
Okay.
So the red and white, you have to turn the RCA into a quarter inch.
Okay.
And if you want, you can make it tip sleeve. You don't have to make it the full, it doesn't have to look like, can I see that again, please? Thanks. I'll give you that back. Tip ring sleeve is this and this and this.
Yeah.
Oh, we're doing a video now, okay. So tip ring sleeve is looks like this. Tip, ring is in the center, and sleeve is down here. This is ground, this is signal, this is cold. Like electrical, it's a 3-wire configuration. You can also buy these adapters where you don't actually have that center. So you have tip, and then you have sleeve. There's no ring. And for short runs, that's fine. Actually, for RCA, it's a perfect connection because RCA has only 2 connections anyway. It doesn't have the ring in the middle. So you could actually buy something that's going to be just tip and sleeve, if that's easier for you to find.
Okay.
If you have the option of buying one or the other, buy the tip ring sleeve because it's a better connector. If you can't, or it's much more expensive or whatever, tip sleeve is fine. Because the RCA already doesn't have the 3rd wire anyways. Thank you.
Any closing statements you'd like to make?
Now without my lawyer present, thank you.